everybody, I'm Corrine Forrest, and this week I want to talk to you about ways to get out of a rut and start fresh. So last week I talked about that practicing perseverance is good for us. We want to develop those skills ahead of time so that when we need it, we have that kind of muscle already built up. And one of the ways I said to do that is to establish routines and then practice following those routines. And those routines, like I said, can be very good for us. However, sometimes routines can become ruts if we don't change and adapt them as our life changes and adapts. So if there are parts of your life that are feeling predictable, unfulfilling, or maybe even boring right now, maybe it's time to adapt and freshen up some parts of your life. So here are 4 simple things to get out of a rut and generate some positivity and positive energy in your life. So the first one is to figure out what makes you happy. Now, I don't know if you've been watching all these videos, but that's been kind of a recurring theme over the last few weeks. And I did a video called What Are You Passionate About? To give you some thought starters and some questions as you sit down and really think about what lights you up. And I want to say that this list can change over time as well. I used to be a really passionate gardener. I mean, when I bought my first house and had, a yard to landscape, I spent all winter researching soils and what plants are good in my climate. I learned about fertilizers and organic gardening and all sorts of things I just spent. And then once spring hit, I spent all spring, summer, and fall outside. If I was at home, odds are good that I was outside gardening around that. So I was really passionate about that. But times have kind of changed, and I am still very, very passionate about nature, and I love to be in it, but I like that more natural state rather than that kind of manicured state now. So I do still plant pots, and I have to weed and deadhead flowers and that kind of thing, but I'm not as passionate about it as I used to be because things have changed. So I want you, as you think about what makes you happy, to go with what's currently lighting you up and trying to add more of that to your routine, even if it has to be done in conjunction with something else. Like my natural thing is I have to take the dog for a walk anyway, and I tend to take her for walks through fields so I can enjoy some of that natural environment rather than through neighborhoods where I'm kind of enjoying a whole different environment there. So tip 1, what makes you happy? Tip number 2 is to say yes more. We need to get out of our comfort zone and say yes to something new. Now, I will fully admit my brain is a say no first kind of brain. And then if I think about it for a while, I'll change my mind to say yes. And I know that about myself, and I have to set up my circumstances to make the yes a little easier. And here's what I mean. About a month ago, I saw an advertisement for an event for the Women in Defense that I belong to called Talk Derby to Me. And it was literally just like a networking and cocktail hour on the Friday before the Kentucky Derby. Now, I bought the tickets. The minute I saw that, I'm like, I'm going to go to that. Because I knew if I waited and I let the no win, I probably wouldn't have went. And I'm glad I made that commitment, that financial commitment, because the day dawned of the event, and it was cold and it was windy and it was an outdoor event. And had I left it to deciding that day, I didn't feel like going. But I dressed for the weather. It turns out they put us in a protected place with heaters, so it wasn't cold and it wasn't windy. And I am so glad I went. I mean, it really filled me up to have some good food, some good cocktails with people I haven't seen in a long time, some former coworkers. I met some new people. So glad I went, but I had to set myself up to make saying yes that day easier. Third tip is to make a stop doing list. We all know the things that drain us of our energy. We all know what our bad habits are, or at least most of them. So we want to try to do less of them, right? Kind of makes sense. But there are some things that drain us, like I like to use the example of laundry on that, where it's continual, and if you find it draining, you still have to do it. Well, maybe we can make our stop doing list into something called the stop doing so often list. Are you really only one multi-pack of socks and underwear away from being able to only do laundry once a month? Or do you sweep your floors every day? Well, you know what? A good portion of humanity lives in houses with dirt floors, so maybe you don't have to sweep it every day. So my third tip is make a stop doing list, or at least a stop doing so often list. And my last tip is to declutter. Declutter your mind, declutter your habits, your bad habits especially, and declutter your space. Now, I love this one. I just, it's part of my DNA that I like to organize things and be organized. So I use journaling every day to declutter my mind. It just helps me process emotions in a different way. I declutter my habits using the Atomic Habits book by James Clear. It's kind of my Bible on making and breaking habits. And then as far as decluttering your space, I made a video a couple of weeks ago called Make Spring Cleaning Fun. And also back in January, I did a video about one of my goals for the year, one of my resolutions, so to speak. And that was to go through 12 storage areas in my house, one per month, and declutter it. Go through it, get rid of things. The example I like to use is that, do I really need the 10-gallon aquarium in the attic that my son had gerbils in 20 years ago? Probably not. It's probably time to go through that area and declutter. So my 4 tips: what makes you happy, say yes more often, a stop doing or a stop doing so often list, and declutter. So with that, I'm going to leave you with this from the lighter side. What do you call a chameleon that can't change colors? You call him an erectile dysfunction. So with that, I will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.